Alright, we're back to the steering on the 424 NB. We haven't touched it for probably 3 weeks. And now that the tie rods are done, we got to put it back together. These are the original gears out of the steering box. They were really gross. I had them sitting in this little soup can here, and it was full of, I filled it up with brake parts cleaner. And it actually did a pretty good job of cleaning them up. I just got to give them a little wiping down, I think. And it's been sitting outside like this, like I said, for about 3 weeks. And the can was pretty full, and it all must have evaporated out of there. It's kind of funny, but the one that's on the bottom is covered with sludge. Gross. So let's clean them up. All right, so I got the gears cleaned up good enough. And there's a washer, and there's a gear, and there's a shaft that they go on. And they're cleaned up good enough. They're going to have to get coated with grease anyway, so I'm not going to be too particular. I got all new nylon lock nuts here. I'm going to reuse the same bolts. The heads are rusty, but the bolts are fine. And they're a weird size. They're like 1 3/8 and 1 1/4. So we had painted all the rest of the components here, and we're going to put it back together. I painted on the frame down there underneath where they were. And I got the IPL for reference here. Alright, so now we got to take this bottom of the steering and bolt it back into the frame. And that uses some 3/4 inch by 5/16 bolts. So let's get this thing situated properly first. So I'll go down there like that. And then I'm trying to think, is it easier to bolt it together first and then drop it in the frame, or is it easier to leave it down in the frame like that? I'm unsure which way is the best way to do it. And the other issue is that gear more or less needs to be timed to the steering wheel properly, so you get the right steering travel when the shaft is plugged in as well. So it's a little harder than you might think to do this. So I got to study it a little bit and figure out the timing of it. Alright, so I got the top of the box just kind of mocked on there with no gears in it. And I'm thinking that, I don't know if you can see underneath here, but that's the arm that actually connects to the tie rods. And I'm kind of thinking that if I have that centered when I put the gears in there, that it will be timed properly. So I got to load up the gearbox with grease before I actually bolt it together. So I'll pull it back up. It just kind of goes down over this shaft right there. So I'll pull it up over that shaft, and then if you come back to the IPL over here, you can see this area here, those gears, number 56, 57, 58, that's what we're dealing with. So we'll grease it up good and we'll put it back together and we'll see what happens. All right, everything is plugged back together now and greased up. I'm actually gonna just put maybe like some loose bolts in there for a minute, just so that it's in the right position. Let's just put like those two in, and maybe this one. Let's just leave it like that for a minute and see if it actually will steer. Yeah, it does. It actually works. That's awesome. Can you see the tie rod arm moving? Well, it's moving, so that's good news. So let's bolt her together and see if it works. All right, this piece here goes under the back, and on the original bottom plate that came from the 424, it didn't have this. This one's actually out of an 8/16 spare box. They must have changed the design a little bit. So this goes underneath back here from the bottom, and the holes for the bolts kind of go through there. So let me put that on and see what we got. All right, the steering box is all bolted in, and tomorrow we'll put the new tie rods on. All right, so I got my 2 tie rods done and painted up and ready to install. They're both set at 9.5 inches like the original ones were. This end here is a little bit different than the other 3, so I'm going to put that on the inside of the tractor where no one sees it, and then on the outside you'll see 2 that look the same. Now I got some jam nuts that will go on here, 9/16 nylon lock washer jam nuts. So let's put it together.